You're listening to Inside Lebo, a podcast giving you an inside look at Mount Lebanon, Pennsylvania, produced by Mount Lebanon's Public Information Office.
What does it mean to truly serve your community? For some, it's a career choice. For others, it's something deeper, a lifelong connection to the place that they call home. Today's guest doesn't just work in Mount Lebanon, he's lived its story from the very beginning. Hi, I'm Rachel Windsor, Mount Lebanon's Assistant Public Information Officer and the Senior Editor of Mount Lebanon Magazine. And in this episode, brought to you by Trouvers Jewelry, we're talking with someone whose roots in Mount Lebanon run deep. Matt Coleman grew up here, graduated from Mount Lebanon High School, attended Duquesne University, and now serves the very community that shaped him as paramedic with Medical Rescue Team South Authority, better known as MRTSA. Matt, thanks so much for being here.
Well, thank you. Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here. Yeah.
Awesome. So let's start at the beginning. What was it like growing up in Mount Lebanon?
Growing up here was kind of like a Leave It to Beaver kind of TV show for me. It was a quiet, safe community. I grew up in the Sunset Hills section of Mount Lebanon. That's where I still live today. Went to house school. The middle schools were closed at the time, so I went to the 7th and 8th grade at the high school, and the elementary school went to 6th grade. And I always had an affinity for lights and sirens and things of that sort. So the Mertz ambulance station was just down the street pretty much from where I grew up.
Yeah, so natural fit then. Yeah. When you think back to your time at Mount Lebanon High School, what would you say stands out the most to you?
I would say the teachers and the friendships that I made there. A couple of my friends went on to public safety jobs. One's a Bethel Park police officer that I'm still in touch with, and a City of Pittsburgh paramedic. I played football in middle school and through 11th grade, and then realized I wasn't good enough to keep playing football. But that's what stands out from my high school days.
Awesome. So I'm sure, as you know, Mount Lebanon has a reputation for being a close-knit community, and you even said it sort of felt like Leave It to Beaver in some ways. So did you feel that closeness growing up?
Yeah, I did. The street that I lived on didn't have a lot of kids my age, but certainly the surrounding streets did, and made great friends with people that I went to elementary school all the way through. The best man at my wedding is somebody that I went to kindergarten with and stay in touch with to this day. So I definitely would say it's close-knit. Grew up going to church at St. Bernard's, made lots of lifelong friends there, still go to church there, so it's definitely close-knit.
Awesome. And then after high school, you stayed close to home and you attended Duquesne University. So what led you there and what did you study?
Well, what led me there actually was my mom worked at Duquesne. She still teaches there one class a week in the evening. So I had a free ride to Duquesne. That's what led me there.
Awesome.
But very thankful that I was able to go there. I studied criminal justice. I originally wanted a career in law enforcement. That's kind of what led me into EMS. There's no such thing as a volunteer police officer if you're a young person starting out, so it kind of left you with volunteer firefighting or EMS. And I thought if you got into EMS as an EMT, which is the basic level you have to do before you're a paramedic, it would give you some experience with patient care, going on calls, things of that sort, and I kind of just fell in love with that. Yeah.
Awesome. So was it during college then that you realized you wanted to go into emergency services, or was it earlier?
Probably earlier than that. Probably by high school, I had a great interest in law enforcement, public safety things. If he's listening out there, Kevin Mailing, if any of you guys know, is a retired Mount Lebanon firefighter, but he did lots of programs in the schools when I was a kid, and I was always fascinated by the things he would talk about. There were some great police officers that came through the schools, and I just always kind of had an interest in the work that they did.
Great. So we're going to transition into a break here, and with a word from our sponsor, Trouvers Jewelry. And in the second half of today's episode, we'll talk a little bit more about your work today with MRTSA and what it means to serve the community that you've always called home.
Looking for that perfect piece of jewelry? At Trouvers Jewelry, you're not just a customer, you're part of the family. Locally owned by Mount Lebanon residents Rob and Kay Trouver, Trouvers has specialized in exquisite craftsmanship and custom jewelry design for over 30 years. Rob is an expert goldsmith, ensuring your jewelry is created with the utmost skill and care. Whether you're looking for something timeless or one of a kind, Trouvers delivers it all. Visit us at the corner of West Liberty and Piermont Avenue, or check us out online at trouvers.com. At Trouvers, it's personal.
Welcome back to Inside Lebo. We're here with Matt Coleman, a Mount Lebanon native who now serves the community as a paramedic with MRTSA. So Matt, what does a typical day look like for you as a paramedic?
So I work a daylight shift. I start at 6 o'clock in the morning and it goes till 6 p.m. Usually there's late calls. You can never determine when someone's going to call 911, so the next shift doesn't start till 6 p.m. Calls start coming in at 5:45, so you end up usually leaving about 7 p.m. in reality. But you never know what you're going to see, really. Any day is different from the next. But a typical day, you get into the station, you start checking your truck. We have a roll call similar to the police and the fire department where we just go over where the crews are assigned and anything going on that day. And then you wait for somebody to call 911, which usually doesn't take long.
Yeah. And you mentioned that you still live in Mount Lebanon, so some of those calls that you're responding to might actually be neighbors or people that you know. So how would you say that impacts your work?
So I have gone on several calls over the years for people that I do know, whether it is a neighbor or somebody that I went to school with or their family. And the way that impacts me, I think, is it's nice to see a familiar face in an emergency. So, you know, not every 911 call is life and death, but whoever's calling 911, for them, it's an emergency to them. And I think it's reassuring for them to see somebody that they know. It kind of puts them at ease.
Yeah. So I guess in a similar way, what would you say it's like serving the community where you grew up?
It's amazing. I'm happy to do it, thrilled to do it. It's an honor to do it, really. I think that all the time. What's nice about working in a place where you grow up, if you're in public safety, is you're familiar with the streets, you're familiar with businesses, things of that nature, without having to always hunt them down or look them up. At MRTS, we serve 6 communities. Mount Lebanon's our headquarters in one of them, so if I get into the outskirts of Green Tree, I still have to look up a street here and there. But in Mount Lebanon, I'm solid, so that's a big advantage.
Awesome. And as I'm sure everyone knows, emergency services can get intense. So what would you say keeps you motivated?
I would say keeps me motivated is just a desire to help people, to want to do this job. It's a fun job. Sometimes I tell my wife it's like going to work at like a frat house. You know, everybody's kind of friends and family environment there, and then it gets interrupted with ambulance calls. So it's a great place to work, and my coworkers and my desire to serve the community is what keeps me motivated.
And so another way that you also serve the community, you're part of the CERT team, which for people listening that might not be familiar, that is the Critical Incident Response Team, which is the South Hills version of a SWAT team. And so on there, you work in the tactical EMS branch. Can you talk a little bit more about that, especially as your perspective working in EMS on the CERT team?
Sure. So SWAT teams all across the country have a component of what they refer to as the operators, and that's what most people think of when they think of a SWAT team. That's the police officers that are dressed in all the tactical gear with the big guns. But the other components of SWAT teams are the negotiators, and in addition to them talking to suspects and things like that, they're responsible for all the intelligence gathering, use of technology. There's drones, there's throwbots, there's all kind of neat tools that SWAT teams use. They also gather up the warrants and necessary paperwork. And then the side that other people might not know about is the TEMS unit, and that's the Tactical EMS unit, and that's made up of paramedics and one physician from St. Clair Hospital's emergency room. And we train twice a month with the SWAT team operators. We have all the same gear. If you saw us standing next to somebody on the street minus the long gun, you would not be able to really tell the difference between who the paramedic is, who the negotiator is, who the operator is. But our purpose and mission on the team is to provide medical support to any injured party, whether that's a suspect, whether that's an innocent person, whether that's a police officer, and to get them immediate medical care. So on a typical ambulance call, if something comes in that has a propensity to be violent, we do what's called staging, and we wait until the local law enforcement gets there and secures the scene and lets the paramedics know that it's safe to enter. So if it's a SWAT situation, the paramedics are embedded with the operators, and we're right there. So if something were to happen to anybody, we can render care immediately to them.
Yeah, that's great. How long have you been part of the CERT team?
For 10 years. The training for it is a couple different classes that are beyond what ordinary paramedics receive training-wise. So I took my training for it in Washington, D.C. It was a week-long class, actually, with the chief of MRTSA. Currently used to be on the SWAT team with me till he got promoted. But he and I took that class in Washington, D.C. together. And there's some other classes that are locally done as well. Yeah.
Very cool. What do you wish that people understood about the work that MRTSA paramedics do every day?
Well, for one thing, I would want people to know that if you think you're having a medical emergency of any kind, you're never bothering us in any way, so don't hesitate to call 911. Sometimes the paramedics are all out of the stations, so I would encourage people not to drive to an ambulance station looking for help, to stay where you are and call 911, because you could end up driving to the station, knocking on our door, and we're all out on calls and not there. Likewise, if someone calls a 10-digit phone number, somebody might not be at the station. So I would say always call 911. The other thing that I would want people to know, sometimes we go on calls and people are a little confused if that's a career staff, if that's volunteers, and they'll apologize for waking people up in the middle of the night. But I would want everyone to know that's 24/7 staffed with career paramedics and EMTs that are paid to be there and happy to help you no matter what your emergency is.
Absolutely. So I guess as a final question, we touched on it a little bit already about your, background growing up in Mount Lebanon, still living here today. How would you say that growing up and living in Lebo helped shape you as a person and how you approach your work?
I think it exposed me to a variety of people that live in the community. I think that's something else that people aren't always keen to. It's a more diverse community than people think, economically as well. You can go to big homes, average homes, apartments, businesses. There's all sorts of things here in Mount Lebanon. And I think growing up here allowed me to experience that and know that getting into it. And it helps me interact with the patients that we see.
That's great. Well, thank you, Matt, for sharing your story and for the work that you do every day to keep our community safe. And that's going to be it for this edition of Inside Lebo, sponsored by Trouvers Jewelry, produced by Marcia Morgenstern, with music by Drew Mignot and graphics by Amy Robinson. Be sure to subscribe for future episodes, and we'll see you next time with more from Mount Lebanon.
Thanks for listening to Inside Lebo, produced by Mount Lebanon's Public Information Office. Learn more about all things Lebo at mountlebanon.org or by following our Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram pages.